for the record?
Yes. Robert R. Freeman.
And Dr. Freeman, are you currently or have you ever been employed by the DeKalb County School District?
I was employed by the DeKalb County School District in 1980 and retired from there in 1996, during which time I served all of that time as superintendent of schools.
And prior to working for the DeKalb County School District, did you work in the other school districts in the
I
country?
was superintendent of schools in Pueblo, Colorado, South Bend, Indiana, Menominee, Michigan.
And what's your educational background?
I've been superintendent of schools in 5 different districts. Before that, I was director of public relations for the Indianapolis Public Schools. And before that, I was a teacher of English.
Okay. And what's your educational background?
Well, I have a PhD.
Where's your PhD from, Doctor?
Indiana University.
Now, Dr. Freeman, do you know Mr. Eugene Walker?
Yes, I did.
And how did you come to know Dr. Walker?
Well, interestingly, we were at a picnic. And I had been here in Atlanta, having come from Pueblo. I'd been here in Atlanta maybe 2 weeks. And we were at a picnic party. His wife was a teacher at the school. I was trying to get around to all the schools and get acquainted to all the people. And he impressed me very much with his gentle but kindness to everybody that was there, even though he was a professor, which entitles you to a little bit of grammar altitude. And we talked a little bit. He told me a little bit about how he felt about what was good and what was potentially good in DeKalb County. Well, we talked, and then later I called him and asked him to meet me. We talked again. And then I decided that I would like to have him help me to improve some of the problems that we had in DeKalb. One of the biggest problems, of course, was we were under DSEG regulations. And that was our strategic plan, was to fulfill the DSEG problems. And to my surprise, he agreed with me.
And do you recall what year this was?
Yes, it would have been 1980.
So this was in 1980. And as a result of meeting Dr. Walker in that conversation, did you hire Dr. Walker to work with you?
Yes, I did.
And in what capacity did you hire him to work with you?
Well, he had more than one capacity. He started in tech school, and things I needed some advice, I needed some guidance, and he was able to do that. But then he became, I'm not sure whether we called him associates or what we call it. They've changed the names, but it was he reported directly to me when he came over in charge of the person.
And when you say he reported directly to you, was he was a staff member on the DeKalb County School, in the DeKalb County School District?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall what his title was at that time?
Well, that's what it might have been assistant superintendent, it might have been associate superintendent. Associate superintendent.
Okay.
You'll get your time.
They've changed.
He's still in the classroom.
And how long did he work for you in the capacity as associate superintendent?
Well, I'm not sure the exact, I'd have to check my records on that, but I would say probably 10 years.
And did his job title change at any time?
Yes.
And first of all, let me ask you, as an associate superintendent, what were his job duties?
Jobs report to me. Help me find people that could do certain tasks. Arrange to try to attract teachers to DeKalb County. And any other personnel duties that I might have. It was not uncommon just to ask him, I can't give you details on this, George,
Okay.
Dr. Walker, go worry with it for me.
Okay.
And he would take charge.
And after he served as associate superintendent, did he move on to another position with DeKalb County School District?
No,
Okay.
he retired.
You mentioned something about personnel a few minutes ago. Did he ever serve in a personnel capacity?
Yes,
And what was his title?
he was associate superintendent.
Okay, so as the associate superintendent, did he deal with personnel issues?
Yes.
And did that include the hiring of individuals for jobs?
Well, yes, but not independently. It was this way when we worked together. I didn't make decisions without agreement. He didn't make decisions without agreement. We had other people that, depending on what positions we're looking for, we had other people that would come in and try to decide, help us decide.
Okay. And you mentioned that his wife worked for the DeKalb County School District. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did you consider it a conflict of interest that you were hiring him when his wife worked for the district?
No.
And why was that not a problem?
You know, you'd have to understand a little bit about how things change over the years. In those days, it was very difficult to find teachers, first of all. Secondly, we would, one time I was told, and I can't verify this, but I'm sure it's nearly accurate, that we had over 1,000 people in the district that had a relative. As long as the person didn't report to their master, in effect, then I didn't see any conflict for that at all.
Okay. And the position that you hired Dr. Walker for, was he qualified for that position?
Yes, he had a doctor's degree from Duke.
And in the position he served in for those 10 years, did he ever have an opportunity to speak before the Board of Education of DeKalb County?
Yes.
Now, did you ever disagree with Dr. Walker on policies relative to the DeKalb County School District?
Yes.
And when you disagreed with him on policies, did you find that he behaved in a professional manner in voicing his disagreement?
Absolutely.
And did you ever witness any unprofessional behavior on the part of Dr. Walker?
Not one time.
Did you ever witness him being acting in any unethical way?
No, I did not.
During the period that Dr. Walker worked with you, did he ever abuse his position by hiring friends or family members?
Not to my knowledge.
And if friends and family members of Dr. Walker's were hired by the DeKalb County School District during that time, would he have been the ultimate decision maker regarding their hiring?
No, he would not. But remember, we were looking for a family type. We wanted to bring our people in, and I wanted to find families that would come in together. And in the days, we'd often find a husband and wife out of state even. But in those days, also, his wife was on board long before. She was on board before he was. So I didn't find any conflict with that, and I never one time had any problem because of that.
In your role as the superintendent, did you find it appropriate for board members to ask staff questions?
I know that's an issue that's coming up. I didn't find a problem with it. I know that the Southern Association rules urges you to clean that up and straighten that out, but I never had a problem working with the board. I wanted their advice. They're the people closest to the community. They are people that would help me when I need help. They have to help me with the budget. They have to help me with the problems in the district. And so it just didn't occur to me that there was a problem.
And During your time as a superintendent, did board members visit schools within their district or within the DeKalb County School District?
Yes.
And was that a problem, in your opinion?
It might have been a nuisance once in a while, but in general it wasn't. See, that's part of what the superintendent's either able to do or not able to do. Keep the people on the, you got a left side and a right side, and you try to keep them on your side.
And during the time that you were the superintendent, was SACS the accrediting agency at that time?
Yes.
And during that time, was the school district able to be fully accredited?
Yes.
But back during the period you were the superintendent, was there district accreditation or were individual schools accredited?
The district.
All right, I don't have any additional questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Freeman, my name is Kevin Bradbury with the Attorney General's Office. I just have a couple of questions for you. Part of your testimony, you stated that you were superintendent until 1996. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. And you said that in those days some things weren't as big of a deal. But would you agree with me that things change over time?
Sure.
Would you agree with me that as a school district gets larger in size, employees, and financing, some things that might not have been a problem before could become a problem?
It's smaller now than it was then.
I'm sorry?
It's smaller now than it was then. And to answer your question in the broad sense, no, I didn't see that as a problem.
So you don't agree with me that little things can become a problem as time goes on?
Yes.
Okay. You said that you didn't see a problem with having someone related to you as long as you weren't reporting to that person. Is that right?
Yes, or that person reporting to you.
Okay. Do you agree with me that it's possible for a person that you're related to have a bias in trying to help you out, exert influence?
Objection to the speculation. He asked if it was possible.
Well, I think it's been asked and answered. I mean, I think where you're going was answered by Dr. Freeman when he said that, they should not be under your supervision. I'm paraphrasing. So I don't know that question really needs to be asked of this witness. I think he's addressed that. My interpretation of his comments is that as long as the nepotistic relationship is not within the supervisory chain, he's fine with it. Others may think that's wrong, but that's his position. Okay?
All right. You did have a good degree of communications and conversations with SACS, the accreditation agency, while you were superintendent. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say that much.
Let me rephrase then. One of the concerns of superintendent is keeping the school district in line with accreditation standards.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was just putting it down there on paper when you called me. About 30 different groups of people that we work with and try to understand and try to take their point of view into consideration.
So as part of working with those people and looking at accreditation issues, if your accreditation agency said that they thought that something was a problem, even though you didn't necessarily think it was, would it be safe to say that you should adopt or you should change how you're doing things?
Yes.
And talking a little bit about the nepotism policy, and Dr. Walker in particular, were you aware that he had at least 9 family members working for the district at one time?
No, but it would have been part of my thinking to try to make families out of it.
Sorry?
We wanted as many people as we could to have their families involved in the school.
Would you agree with me that one way to avoid a conflict of interest would be to have a family member work in, say, an adjacent school district?
Would you repeat that?
Would you say that a good way to avoid a conflict of interest would be to have that family member work in an adjacent school district?
Well, you know, I had occasions to discuss this with certain people. Board had the same feeling that I had. And that is that if you can... Well, my own son said to me one time, I said, son, you've met the superintendent of schools in Gwinnett. You've met the superintendent of schools in Atlanta. Could you consider working for either of these people? He said, I could consider it, but I don't want to do it. I want to go to a place that has an integrated population. Well, that was Atlanta. Apparently, he felt was too black, and it was too white. So he wanted to work in a district that was black and white. Now, that's the thing we tried to find. We tried to find people that wanted to work in our district, wanted to be part of our family. My thinking is that a family is the best way to make it run right. And as you know, we had our scores were 900. Our SATs were average 900. Our holding power was 90%. Around the country, all over the country, I've watched, and that's one of the highest in the country. Why? I think because we tried to bring in and work with a family type staff.
So if I understand your testament correctly, DeKalb should be supporting nepotism.
Objection.
I just think
Well, hold on just a second. What's your objection?
I just think it's
Hold on,
irrelevant.
Dr. Freeman, let's wait. Let me roll on the objection.
Yeah, I object to the word nepotism, which has a definite meaning, and this witness has not used that word.
Well, but he's on cross-examination, and the counsel is entitled to ask that question, so I'll overrule the objection. Do you want to ask it again, or you want?
I'm wondering about your testimony, because what it seems to me that you're saying is that if family members are available, DeKalb should be hiring.
Well, only if they're competent and trained.
Okay. Do you agree with me that it presents a conflict of interests when the former superintendent is recommending his son for employment as the assistant superintendent?
Now, do that again for me.
Would you agree with me that it presents a conflict of interests when the former superintendent is recommending for employment his son as an assistant superintendent?
I'm going to object, Your Honor, as to the relevance. Those aren't the facts here. Dr. Walker was not the superintendent, and he didn't recommend his son as assistant superintendent, so I don't know why that would be relevant.
No, he never.
Hold on, Dr. Freeman. I'm going to overrule the objection. I think we bring to expertise testimony here, quasi, de facto expert witness. I think this is an appropriate area for him to ask. So go ahead.
I didn't know about that. I don't know about that.
You weren't aware of your son being hired as assistant superintendent?
My son?
Your son.
Oh, well, say it backwards then. And who is it that's supposed to have recommended him?
Yourself, sir.
What is it relevant that I've been gone 10 years?
I'm asking, do you think that there is a conflict of interest with son going to work for the same school district as a superintendent, as assistant superintendent, that his dad did?
I think it would be.
Okay. How about one of the former DeKalb school members, Deborah Roberts, having 2 daughters being employed with DeKalb school system? Doesn't that present a conflict
I
of
was
interest?
gone.
You were gone?
Gone many years. If it
Okay. How about a daughter-in-law, one of the board secretaries, is hiring someone who's related to her a conflict of interest, in your opinion?
Well, I have to know example.
Were you aware that Dr. Walker, in August of 2012, sent an email recommending the employment of one of the board members' secretaries, his daughter-in-law?
When was that?
Objection, Your Honor, he's misstating the facts.
Well,
It wasn't
what's
Dr. Walker's daughter-in-law.
okay?
It wasn't, I mean, none of those facts are correct.
Well, if you're mentioning Dr. Walker, I think that, we need to have the facts exactly right. You're free to ask a hypothetical, but if you're going to use Dr. Walker, just make sure you get the facts right. Have you reassessed the facts?
Yes, Ron, just 1 second.
All right, take your time. You want to ask us that question again, or a similar question? Or?
We'll ask in a different way.
All right.
Do you believe there is a conflict when one of the school board members seeks the hiring of a relative or a relative of a member of his staff?
No, I think that's possible for, I would imagine that in the past 50 years that's been often done. I don't remember what example you were thinking of. But I wouldn't see anything wrong with someone because they had a board member for a parent or a cousin or a dear friend.
Let's go more in general. We're talking about chain of command. You have a relationship with the board members, and the board members have a relationship with you. Is that correct? Or as superintendent, I mean.
Yes, that would be.
Okay. Would you agree with me that it disrupts the chain of command for a board member to communicate directly with one of your staff for preferences?
I think it'd be very foolish to assume that doesn't occur in every school district in America.
That's not what I asked, though. You agree with me that it disrupts the chain of command?
The answer is it may be more disruptive to go the other way.
Again, I'm asking merely whether a board member communicating...
Asked and answered.
Well, he considers the answer unresponsive, so let's try it again.
Say it again.
You'd agree with me that a board member communicating directly with one of your staff as the superintendent, that disrupts the chain of command?
Not especially.
So if the board member is communicating with one of your employees, whom reports to you and not the board, them having a conversation outside your knowledge, that's acceptable.
That's a minimum thing. I might say to them, now don't do that, or let's bring it to me first, or tell me what went on in the conference. I might do one of those things, but that doesn't have to be a big issue.
Okay. It doesn't have to be a big issue, but if your accreditation agency says this has been a problem, chain of command, you should really make sure you don't do that. Would you say that at that point the board member should refrain?
No, you said if the agency says that.
Yes. If someone...
Now, I wouldn't agree that the agency knows as much about getting along with the board as I do.
Okay, with that in mind, however,
What's the district supposed to do, Doctor, if the accreditation agency is saying that they do have concerns about that process?
Well, Judge, I never had that happen in 31 years. There are an awful lot of superintendents around the country that try to work very cooperatively with their boards, and they're not looking for work. You have to get along. You have to.
But you also have to keep your accreditation.
Yeah, well, you've got to get along with the accreditation agency. You've got to get along with the board. You've got to get, well, I said, what, 40 different districts or 40 different powers that decide what you're going to do. They have their own agendas. I don't see any problem in that. It depends on the skill of the superintendent and his other leaders. But I never had problems with that.
Perhaps you didn't have problems with that, but as a former superintendent, if DeKalb, under your watch, was placed on accreditation probation based on concerns of chain of command, what sort of things would you do to make sure that problem got fixed?
I would try to go along. I would try to get along with the accrediting agency and ask them, of course, try to be more specific on exactly what problems exist and what I can do to help.
Okay. And the little things that maybe weren't worth dealing about. In such a situation, would you say that things like that should probably be stopped?
Well, I wouldn't want to make an issue out of it.
Assuming that the district is on accreditation probation for issues with chain of command, maybe you didn't want to make a deal of it before. What should you do after?
I don't quite feel that this chain of command is sacred. I think people help each other.
Okay, thank you.
Redirect.
No additional questions, Your Honor.
All right, is he subject to recall?
No, he's not.
All right, Dr. Freeman, thank you so much for your testimony.